All right, let's start this again. So Jimit, I'm a partner engineer here at Google Cloud. I've been with Google Cloud for 3.5 years. And as a partner engineer, I specifically work with a large set of partners which we have. So just like that, PingCap is also one of our partners. And they have an offering called as HTAP Cloud, which is hosted on Google Cloud. So it's a one-stop shop for customers to purchase it. Essentially go to Google Cloud Marketplace, click a button, and then you are ready to go. So it gets all the benefits of being on the cloud, and then it gets all the technology which HTAP has built in to make it the best hybrid database platform out there. So what I was planning on doing today is just going through a very high-level overview in terms of what is LLM, why do we have generative AI in the news today, what is the art of the possible with generative AI, what are Google's offerings, what all use cases are out there today, how is Google Cloud ready for enterprises, and then what Google is doing in terms of making it a responsible AI, and what are the next steps for you all to take as well. Okay, so let's start with a primer on the large language models. So think of this as the Industrial Revolution 4.0, right? In this age today, you might have started hearing about this since late last year. Everything is Gen AI or everything is AI, right? So this is definitely a turning moment in our lives where you will see that generative AI is changing things. Do not think of this as a revolution where we are getting replaced. This is basically a revolution where you're getting a helping hand. So once I go through the slides, you will see how we are getting a helping hand. Right, so just to make it very clear, what are large language models? Essentially, think of this as there is a model, and you have told the model, go read this petabytes of information which is out there. So they have gone, they have read through tons and tons of knowledge from the books, from the internet, from anywhere else you can point them, and now they are ready. So as you can see in this example, right, you gave a ton of books to a model, it came back, and then you are asking, what is a cat? The response which you are getting is not actually what it read in the book. It's not something you have coded. This is what all it gained from going through all this petabytes of information. So that's why it's unique. We are not telling what to say. The response is coming back on its own. And this is what we call as emergent capabilities, right? Where you have not told the model how you respond when somebody asks you about a cat, a dog, or an animal. It just understands the context of the question, and it comes back with a response. That's why it's emergent. It also is very useful in terms of creating new content, right? So you can ask about, explain me what happened in 1990 during this time, or let's say in a world war or whatever. It's going to come back based on the knowledge it had, and then it's going to summarize to you. I've used this a lot in terms of summarizing content for me, or I can use this to expand content. So for example, let's say if I'm writing an email, I wrote 3 lines, but then I want to be a very big email. I can ask the LLM, take this text, and then expand it for me. That's one use case. If you ever watched Google I/O this year, Sundar had showed this video in his I/O speech as well, where somebody, let's say, if they have a problem with their flight, they want to write to an airline saying, this is the problems I faced. You can give some prompt to the LLM. It's going to write you a very nice email, which you can forward out. Right, so this is all. This all started in 2017 when Google first launched the transformer model, and then as you can see, year over year, there are new and new advancements happening. The latest model out today is, we are calling it as Bard. All of you should have access to Bard. This is an add-on which you get on Google Search. Basically, you can still go and do your own search, but Bard is going to give you those generative AI capabilities. Right, so let's discuss what is art of the possible with generative AI on cloud. So think of this in terms of personas. You'll hear those words like use cases and personas a lot. So since we have all heard about generative AI and all the capabilities it brings, we can easily narrow it down into terms of personas. Let's say if this is an analyst, right? Somebody joins your organization now, and you're asking them, go through this 1090 and give me year-over-year growth for a company in X, Y, and Z. It will take them a lot of time. But if they were able to use the LLMs and all the applications built on top of it, you can literally feed your 1090s to them. It's going to do the hard work of going through all this large amount of data, summarizing it, making the complex data easily accessible in there. That's where it helps the analyst. Second one would be customer use services, right? So this is where, let's say you're talking to AT&T, T-Mobile, or any customer service. Oftentimes, we are spending a lot of time in explaining why we are calling. So once they start building this as a conversational AI, you can definitely use it for streamlining the process as well as improving the speed of responses. The third one is for the creatives, right? This is where, think of a marketing, like an event like this. I want to come up with a very pretty image in terms of how this event is going to be. You can always think about it, or you can give a prompt to an LLM, and it's going to come up with an image. The one image which we use a lot is, imagine you have a French cafe. In the backdrop, you have a Golden Gate Bridge, and then you are drinking a coffee. Those kind of images, if I were to tell somebody to paint, it's going to take a while. If I give this prompt to an LLM, it's going to come up with an image real quick. And then you can always customize the image as well. I can say it has to be a sunset. It has to be early morning. I need rain as well. So all of those things can be done within a matter of seconds with the help of all this. And the last one is, this is for the data scientists, right? We are offering those models, and data scientists have the capability of tuning them, changing it to their needs. I won't go through all of this, but this is just going to talk through some of the use cases which I already spoke about, right? So the first one is, let's say you want to pass through a large amount of data in terms of what all happened or what's going on. You can use all of those scenarios. This is by no means the exhaustive list of use cases. This is something we have started seeing our customers use, and it's just evolving day over day. All right, so what are Google's Cloud's offerings, right? So the first thing I want everyone to be aware of is Google and Google Cloud, right? Google is consumer-facing products. So whatever you see on the left here, it's all about Bard and Microsuite. So if you were to use in your, let's say, Gmail account, and you log into Google, you'll probably be interacting with Bard. It's the customer-facing version of LLMs. The data you post here may be used to train the model. Now, when you go into the enterprises, customers on an enterprise side are very paranoid or very much worried about, is my data being used to train the model? Will my competitors get this data because I'm asking a question? So that's why we have two different products. Anything you see on this side, which is Google Cloud's enterprise offerings, it falls into the bucket of Vertex AI. Your data is your data. We do not touch anything on the cloud if it's in the enterprise space. That's a very big delineation. When you talk to your end customers, tell them, do not use your company data into Bard. That's not something they should use. You should use Google Cloud Platform. There's Vertex AI, which helps you do that. Right, so on this slide, you can see all the different models which Google has to offer today. These models keep on evolving. Like Palm 2 is the latest model which we have. There's Cody for code generation. There is Imagine for image generation, as I spoke about. And all of those different models which we have, they offer those experiences in different places, right? At the top, you can see I spoke about Bard. Then there's Vertex AI, Duet AI for enterprises. Then we have this Vertex AI as a platform where the developers or data scientists can come in and use or tweak the model to their likings and then train it on any specific data set which they have. So this is how it goes. If you were to log into the Google Cloud Console today, you will see this is the example of a Palm API model. And essentially what it shows is, like, if I'm talking about a text model, it's going to show text-bison-001. So the first prompt in that text is saying, okay, I'm using a text-based model. The second is the animal size. So depending on what size of animal name you have, you'll have larger context of data going through. And the reason we have so many sizes here is, if you're trying to do a very simple task, you don't need to boil the ocean. You don't need to use a very large model with millions of parameters just to ask a simple question. And that's why you have different animal sizes. And the last numerical value represents the version of it. We are in this day and age where there's constant evolution of products. Softwares are improving a lot. You might have heard of GPT-3, 3.5, 4. Similarly, we also have to keep ourselves updated in terms of what all models we offer. So the last three, the string of numbers, will tell you how often it has been updated. Since we had Google Next like a month ago, there had been more and more announcements. There have been more updates to all these models as well. Right, so if I were to simply break it down in terms of what are Google's AI ecosystem of offerings, you can divide it into two buckets. The first one is Duet AI, the second is Vertex AI. Right, so Duet AI, you can still use it as a consumer. If you go to Gmail today, you will see probably an option of generative AI helping you out. I'll go through that in the next slide, but this is where it's for the workspace users or Gmail or Drive users. And the other is the Vertex AI for cloud, where everything we have to offer on Google Cloud is now under the Vertex AI umbrella. Right, so let's quickly talk about this Duet AI for Google Workspace. Right, it basically tells you about all the different products which you may be using in your personal lives as well. Right, Gmail or Docs to basically summarize or write, generate new content. In slides, you can literally give a prompt saying, I want a slide which has this kind of an image or there's something in the background. It's going to create that. With Google Sheets, if you have tons and tons of data, you want help in organizing or finding out if there's a white space, if something is wrong, use that. And then Google Meet, it removes all the background noise. For example, today, that's all powered by LLMs. There are new features like you may have a background image coming up, depending on the time of the day and things like that. So all of those advances are present in Duet AI, which is a part of the Workspace offering. Right, and this is where we go into the offerings from Google Cloud for all enterprises. So at the very bottom, this is the hardware layer you can think of, like world-class GPUs or TPUs offered by Google themselves, or through our partnerships through NVIDIA. Then we talk about the model garden. So there was a talk in the morning where we were talking about open source. And then this is the model garden where essentially we have models either first party or second party or third party, right? So Google is embracing the cloud completely in terms of, we understand that there are some models which are better from our side. There are some open source models which customers would like, which are open source. So we want this model garden to be a place where developers can come in, input their models, and customers get the luxury of using it. The benefit of having this in Vertex AI or in Google Cloud Platform is that it's tested, it's vetted by Google Cloud engineers. So if you see a model over there, you click a few buttons and it gets deployed in your Google Cloud tenant. It's as seamless as that. There are other third-party sites where if you go there, you try to deploy a model, it takes a while. You have to do a bunch of configuration on other clouds or other places to get it started. So that's the advantage of having your model listed in the model garden. The next platform on top of it is the AI platform. This is something we also expanded in our announcement during Next. Basically, there are connectors or extensions to match where you are as a customer. We do not want you to drop everything or your whole technology stack to use this. We want to make sure we provide you enough buy-ins or extensions so that you can continue whatever you have and then get Google Cloud added onto it. The next one is all those AI solutions which we are aware of, like contact center AI exists today, document AI exists today, where you can parse through a large amount of document and then get some inference out of it. It basically gets supercharged with generative AI. That's all of the offerings at the top. And then at the very top, you can create an application using Vertex AI. I'll show that in one of the use cases. And it basically helps you improve productivity of your employees. Right, so when I kept on saying a lot of models. So here you will see the 6 models which are available. All are in GA. Anybody, if they log into the Google Cloud Console, they can see it today. So PaLM for text is the latest text model. Essentially, think of it for doing anything with regards to language. Then it's PaLM for chat. You can literally start a chat conversation. You can use it for the customer care center options, which I said about. Imagen is the model for text to image. I give a text and it generates that San Francisco in a French cafe image in front of it. There's an embeddings AI. So essentially, it gives you semantic information from unstructured data. I have an example after this, which will go into much more details on that. The next one is chirp for speech to text. So this is a model which we are using for, let's say, if you have a YouTube video going on, and it generates all the subtitles on what all is being said. It's for that. It can be very powerful in terms of what is being said in this song in different languages. So that's a very powerful model. And the last one is Cody for code generation. This is for all the developers out there. It's not going to write the code for you, but it's going to definitely act as a sidekick in terms of writing your comment out or it can look at your code and say, okay, these are the next 2 lines of code which should be coming. So it's very powerful over there. Those are all the 6 models which are available today. Get Google Knox, all of them made very available, and then they were made some advancements as well. Right, so this is again the model garden which I was talking about. This is where you will see all the first party or the second party or the third party offerings. All the models you see here are completely tested, ready to go. And the best part I've seen in the last few months is the number of models which you have in this model garden keep on increasing. If I log in within a week, I'll see more and more models getting started. So there's definitely a lot of momentum in the industry as well as at Google in terms of getting more models added here so that our customers can directly benefit from it. Right, and then now we'll switch gears and talk about some opportunity and use cases, right? So this is an industry-wide trend which I have noticed, and then this is something which we got through this KPMG study as well. A lot of execs are saying that, hey, we realize there's a need of Gen AI because we want to stay ahead in the market. We want to be with the flow, go with the flow, see the trend in terms of what's happening. But then they're also scared in terms of we don't know how it's going to benefit us or how can we leverage into an organization. There's a number one problem which is currently at the board level or the C level right now. So the simplest way to break down it is let's first listen to all those ideas, and then we can come up to a solution, right? So let's figure out the ideas. Let's break it down into what's the business case, what's the technical challenge, and not everything can be solved by an LLM. That's not true. So you cannot just throw an LLM to any problem and assume that it's going to solve it. So definitely, this is like the funnel for you where you keep on figuring out, does this business case make sense? Is this a solvable problem? If it needs quantum computing to solve, you just cannot assume that LLM can do it, right? So go through this filtration process, and then at the end, you'll have something which you have narrowed down and said, yes, this is something I can use an LLM for solving or improving my productivity. So this is the top use cases which I have seen recently. This is by no means the exhaustive list. This is just something we have noticed recently, and then this top 5 keeps on changing every week and how customers are leveraging it. So I wanted to highlight this over here. I have added two use cases in my slide deck here, again in no particular order, but this is, let's say, a use case of text to code, right? Imagine I am a new analyst I joined. I already gave this example before, and then I joined today and I was told by my leadership that go run through this report and tell me what happened in the company's earnings year over the last 4 years or things like that. As an analyst, it's going to take me a lot of time. If I'm using, let's say, a text to code model, I know the data, let's say, exists in BigQuery or any other storage solution. All I need to do is I just need to ask in plain English, look at the earnings from the last 4 years, and then summarize year over year growth. This model will convert this to an actual SQL prompt or the prompt, and then you are ready to run that on your database or storage solution and get an output. So this is the clear example of it, but what I want to highlight in this is you're not just giving an input directly to an LLM. There are other components of Google Cloud which you'll be leveraging as well. So that's how the whole scenario can be built out. This is another scenario. Let's say you have a lot of podcasts stored, right? And then you want to do some analysis from a podcast in terms of what did this person say at the end of this podcast, or summarize what was the result of this podcast. So there are multiple steps, and essentially this is where we are using the embeddings API, where it's going to get some semantic information about the text which was spoken in the podcast. For example, let's say if somebody was talking about San Francisco, the semantic information will say it's a beautiful city, it's a location. So it's going to break it down into vectorized results, which is going to store in the database, then comes back. I know we are running short on time, so I won't go into more details, but this is the whole pipeline where, let's say, I start with a list of podcasts, I go through several different Google Cloud offerings, and then I come back to a Charb API, and then I store all this data in ChromaDB. So the example which I gave you, right, where I'm asking a podcast, what did somebody say in that episode of that podcast in the last 3 minutes, it's going to come back with that result. This is the whole pipeline, but that's the end goal which you'll get. So it's a very powerful technology, but you need so many moving parts to get it working. All right, the last few slides will just talk about enterprise readiness. This is the number one thing I hear from a lot of customers every time I talk to them. So rest assured that if you're using Google Cloud for your enterprise LLM or generative AI projects, data governance and privacy is the number one thing. Your data will stay in your tenant. It's not going to be used by Google or any other customer. There's no leakage. It's fully secure in your environment. There's also this option about talk about responsible AI. So I'll talk about that in the next slide. Before we go that, this is one slide which puts a lot of customers at ease, right? Where we are telling that by default, anything in your GCP tenant stays in your tenant, does not go anywhere. You benefit from having all the different compliance which Google Cloud already has, like GDPR or PCI or other things. So if you build apps on top of it, some of this is inherent in the platform itself. The last thing is, even I cannot access a customer's environment until customer gives me an approval to do it, right? So be very sure that your environment is completely shared by you only and nobody else outside of your organization. Right, so this is a very high-level overview in terms of how your data is stored and then where all the data goes, right? So this is going to be a GCP environment. This is the large language model which exists. There's something we call as an adapter layer where all the APIs are being used. So if I'm trying to call an LLM which is frozen, the adapter layer will make an API call, get you the data, and then comes out. So this is how we are making sure that your data only stays in your environment. It's not being shared by other organizations or nobody else gets access to it. Right, and this is something we already spoke. This is how we are enabling the Vertex AI platform in general. We are using the latest GPUs from NVIDIA, or we are using our own inbuilt TPUs. We are also making sure that we are using clean energy so that we don't burn the whole planet just because you want to run a small lab project, right? So this is something which is deeply concerning for us, and then we are making sure all the efforts are there. And then wanted to highlight in terms of what is Google's approach on responsible AI. You might have heard this from Sundar as well in his talks, but the number one thing you will get from this is we want to be bold in terms of advancing AI to help our lives. But we also want to be careful in terms of we do not promote hate speech or anything like that. So this is where AI comes in, where we have our internal standards in terms of this is how we push the technology, but this is how we make sure that it does not go in the wrong direction or it does not affect the AI principles which we have set up. You can go on Google and you will see those AI principles which we have listed. There's a big list of all the principles which we have. All right, so what's the next steps? So this whole summary of this session today would be just this 4 or 5 blocks which you see here, right? Like why Google Cloud? The first thing is privacy. I think I told enough. And the second is choice. You can pick and choose what kind of models you have or what you need. If you need something for image, there's an image model. If you need something for text, there's a text model. Grounded in factuality, this is something you'll start noticing if you were to go and ask Bard or any other LLM which you have today as well. It's going to give you results, but it's going to tell you how it got to those results. Oftentimes, when you ask a question to an LLM, let's say you go ask ChatGPT or something in Microsoft Bing, if you do not get a context in terms of how this response came, you kind of question it, like, is this correct? How did it come to this conclusion? Why is it telling me this? So this is something we have been enforcing a lot, that any question you ask, it's going to tell you how it came to that conclusion, what all papers it saw, what all research it did in terms of figuring out the solution. Next thing I already mentioned as well was easy to get started. It's a single click deploy. Let's say if you go to the model garden on Cloud Console, you'll see a lot more models. You just click something and then it's ready to go in your environment. We remove all the complexity of getting the model set up, and then you really can focus on executing the work which you're trying to do. Right? And then so this is the last slide basically, but what we want you all to do is join us in creating the future which we want to see. So use our large language models, use our capabilities on the Google Cloud Platform or on Do It AI, create new apps, come up with something new which your customers need, which will benefit all the customers out there as well. And then be ready. I'm here. I'm a partner engineer. I'll definitely be there to help you out. But we have tons and tons of engineers as well to make sure that you become successful, and in the end, your end customers are also successful with this whole wave of generative AI being there.